Thanks, Tony. Mr. Shorten, I'm 31 years old and I've done all the things that were asked of me. I went to a public school. I started working at 14 years and 9 months old. I earned money. I paid my taxes. I never took a single cent in government funding in any way, shape or form. I went on, I started a business, I employed 20 people. My question's this: why is it that neither yourself nor the other side seem to hear one of the biggest concerns at the moment, which is it has become impossible for people of my age to afford a house in the city we live in? And what are you going to do about it?
Stay with us.
We want to create a level playing field for people who are buying their first home with investors who are subsidised by taxpayer-funded subsidies. Now, the issue of housing prices isn't just about negative gearing, okay? Let's be clear. Land supply plays a factor. Whether or not you have a job plays a factor. The presence of overseas buyers plays a factor. So
you're saying capital gains tax plays a factor as well?
Well, negative gearing and capital gains tax discount concessions do play a factor too. So we're looking at one of the strands of reform. Currently, this nation, if you look at the negative gearing, is where you get a subsidy, for the cost of your interest payments, and you can offset that against other income. Now, if you have enough money to take advantage of this perfectly legal practice, that's fine. But the problem is that I don't believe as a nation we should be subsidising that form of activity over other choices, reducing government debt, the other measures which I think build a stronger economy and a stronger society. The beauty of what we're proposing is, one, it's not retrospective. So for anyone in this audience and anyone watching tonight, if you currently negatively gear, there is no change, because we don't believe in making radical change and retrospective change in negative gearing and capital gains tax discount. But two, you'll still be able to do it for new housing. And three, it will no longer be available after the 1st of July 2017 for existing housing. And what that means is that when you're bidding for a house, Mr. Turnbull loves to say there'll be less bidders. There might be a couple of less bidders, but the point about it is there'll still be competition for housing prices. It's not going to ruin the housing market. What it'll do is reduce the heat in an overheated housing market.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly go to another question on this topic. It's from a different perspective. It's from Sean Seacole.
Okay, so my question to you, well, I'll just give you a bit of background first. We all know that the pension... Brief background, yep. We all know that the pension isn't going to be very much. In terms of negative gearing, I'm not referring to the people that you've mentioned, like mentioned by yourself, have, an abundance of wealth, etc., and tens of investment properties here and there. I'm talking about the people sort of in the suburbs here who have invested for their future because, they're not going to get superannuation by virtue of reasons beyond their control, such as people who have been, like wives who have been widowed by their husbands, etc., who've just taken advantage of, being able to buy maybe a small investment or something and then sell that for their retirement. So for the people who are going to get possibly 100 grand or less superannuation when they retire, I think that would be quite sad to get rid of negative gearing, because that's kind of the only livelihood for a lot of these kinds of people. So
okay, well, I think you've made your point. I'll take it straight to Bill. Sure, there are a lot of people out there worried about this, because it's not just rich people, it's not just the top end who are using negative gearing.
Yeah, and I've used my words carefully. I use the word investor. It's not illegal. It's perfectly legal. I don't judge it. What I go to, though, is the following things. You will still be able to negatively gear if we get elected, except for new housing, not existing housing. So if you want that form of investment, it's still there for you for your retirement. Secondly, if you've currently invested under the current rules, no change. So there are actually no losers. It's a prospective change. But thirdly, I've got to say...
Can I just make one point? The government disagrees with you there. It says if you buy a new house, as soon as you put the key in the door, it becomes a second-hand house. Therefore, investors can't buy those houses, so they're going to lose money immediately.
It's usual government propaganda. Let's be Brit.
That's their argument, though.
No, I know, I get that. I mean, I'll try and answer your point and Sean's.
Sure.
So you can still do it. So that's good. That meets one of your criteria. If you currently do it, that's fine. That meets another criteria. But I've got a couple of other criteria which I think are also important here. You can still invest in housing, you just can't get a tax deduction for it. Property's still a good buy. Somehow you'd think, if you listen to Mr. Turnbull and the sort of half-hearted scare campaign they've been running so far, you'd think you're not allowed to invest in property anymore, can I tell you, property's still going to be valuable. All I'm saying is that every taxpayer who goes to work and pays taxes will no longer be required to subsidise those people who seek to claim a tax deduction from negative gearing for the housing. This is not the end of the world.
So would you hope, in fact, that... I'll go back to our question there, we'll get a microphone down to you, Damien, but would you hope, to pick up Damien's point earlier, that price of housing would actually go down so that people like Damien could afford to buy one?
Yeah.
Is that what you would hope would happen?
Tony, let me answer it. I believe that our policies will mean that housing prices won't grow so fast. But I don't believe that this is going to affect, in a downward way, the price of houses. What affects housing prices is if you live in a mining town in central Queensland and the mining boom's over. What affects your ability to service a mortgage is the loss of the job or a family breakup. You know, the truth of the matter is there are a range of factors which generate house pricing, the pricing of houses. I just think that we've got to make some hard choices. For 30 years, political parties on both sides have been told, if you touch negative gearing in any fashion at all, you'll be out on your ear because the property industry will stop it. I do not begrudge the property industry and the high end of those people trying to form campaign funds to campaign against us. They're hanging on to a taxpayer subsidy that every one of you who went to work today is contributing to. But what I don't believe is right is that this nation, when you look at what we give in the form of tax concession, tax subsidy on negative gearing and capital gains tax discount, is spending more at the Commonwealth level on negative gearing and CGT discount than we are on childcare or higher education. What priority is that?
Okay, we'll quickly go back to Damien. He just wants to make a comment or a quick question. Go ahead.
I understand that, and it's very easy for this conversation about negative gearing and housing price to turn to an investment conversation. But I'm asking about the fact that at the moment, the average household in Sydney costs 12 to 14 times annual income for people, which has never been that high. I don't think when you bought your house, it was a factor of 12 to 14 times your annual income. But for my generation, that's what it costs. And we're not thinking about investment. We can't afford to buy our first home.
Damien, I didn't give my answer very well then, and thank you for bringing me back to the key point. My party is giving first home buyers a chance to compete on a more level playing field so you can get your home. I actually back your dream. The dream of Australia is not, as Mr Turnbull says, the right to claim a tax deduction. The dream of Australia is to be able to make sure that your kids grow up and can buy their first home, especially people like you. You started your first job when you're 14 and 9 months. You've educated yourself. You've done everything that's expected of you. It is not too unreasonable to think that in Melbourne and Sydney, you have to be priced out of the market and face unfair competition.
How can he do that unless prices come down?
Well, the fact of the matter is that prices, if they grow more slowly, give you a better chance.
Okay. Okay, I think that's the answer you're going to get.